It's Tuesday, so it's time for another top 10 video. This time, the runner-up from last week's patron poll was my top 10 DM resources. I feel like I've given this response in a variety of different forms, but that's what everybody asked for, so that's what I'll do. Don't mind me being cuddled up here in my Acquisitions Incorporated blanket. I just got a little bit of a chill today, and I can't seem to shake it, so blanket it is. So I was thinking about DM resources that I use to do this video, and I decided I would take what I have and then poll the internet and all of you as well. So if you want to see what the rules are and all of that good stuff, stay tuned. I was really surprised at a lot of the responses. What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and yeah, I reached out on Twitter, on the Nerd Immersion Discord channel, and YouTube to see what everyone said was their go-to resources. And I have mine that I go to as well. And I saw a lot of similar things. So what I've kind of done for the most part is distilled these down into about 10. I think it'll end up being 10 specific things or groups of things, if that makes sense. You know, some of them might be like this website, or some of them might be this particular resource. So you'll see what I'm talking about in just a little bit, but I am curious if there's other DM resources, tools, or things that you use. Let us all know in the comments down below.
Number 10.
Beer, or booze, or coffee. I saw this come up quite a bit. Folks were suggesting this, and I know that's true for me. Sometimes when I'm going to try and plan things out for a campaign, or write stuff down, or even plan out a session, I might just need to decompress or get a little bit of that shot of energy. So sometimes I might be really thinking about something. And again, I've said this before. I don't do a ton of campaign planning as much as I'd like to do. A lot of it is just because I'm so busy doing everything else that campaign stuff, if I feel comfortable enough in what I'm doing, I can just kind of wing it. So sometimes when there's something that's really important that I do need to work on for the campaign, if I get myself stuck wrapped around the axle, I can't get out of my own head, I might just go have a drink, you know, crack open a beer, pour a glass of scotch, sit down, and just sort of distance myself from the campaign, and then usually something will come to me in that moment. Or if I'm struggling, I'm feeling a little sluggish, I'll go get a cup of coffee. Obviously, I've got an Uncle Iroh's t-shirt on, so tea works as well. But really, it doesn't necessarily have to be alcohol or caffeine. Just take a step away. I know that seems silly as a resource, but whatever you need to do to feel comfortable, to decompress, to, you know, help put your thinking cap on, that kind of stuff, those are a good resource. Again, it could just be a glass of water for you, or you know, a pudding cup. I don't know, whatever it is that helps you think. That's always a good resource to have, and don't feel like you need to sit there and just like grind it out immediately. Take some time, figure it out, and, you know, take a break from it, come back, and then take a look at it a second time, and maybe things will just click.
Number 9.
5e Tools. Now, this is a website that I've heard of a lot, and it was one of the biggest echoed things that a lot of you had suggested as a number one tool you use as a DM resource. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't used it at all. So this concept of customizing your own DM screen is pretty nice. I don't know if you can do multiple versions of it, but either way, it looks pretty cool. I might have to use 5e Tools, dive into it a little bit more. It even says right at the top, well, build a personalized DM screen, but under the Dungeon Master section, there's this screen. You can do adventures. It looks like it has most of the pre-written ones. Cults and supernatural boons. These look like, what's this? Is this cult? Oh, it's got, okay, so this is information from Mordenkainen's, as well as different boons and things also from contained in Mordenkainen's. So, I don't know. It looks like it's pretty much just an aggregation of existing tools, but if you don't have the books or don't want to pay for D&D Beyond, it looks like a lot of this is free, so you can get access to most of the pre-written existing stuff here.
Number 8.
Map creation tools. There are a ton of map creation tools out there. Some of them free, some of them paid. I'll show you a couple right here. This could be anything from creating battle maps for yourself, small scale. This could be world maps, city maps, region maps, and so on. We have probably one of the more popular ones, I'd say, is Incarnate. I've used Incarnate for years. They have done so much work to their platform. I can't even fathom it. When I started, it was very basic, and now they have scalable regional maps like this, so I need to redo my entire world map all over again. Dungeon Draft is yet another map creation tool that I've heard a lot of. And obviously you can see it has integrations with a whole bunch of different digital tabletops. And then there's also Dungeon Fog. Again, now version 5 is available for that. I'm sure there are other map creation tools that I'm not familiar with. Also, what's nice, Project Dios is another thing that come from Dungeon Fog. This is for your more zoomed out world maps. But a lot of these also have the accessibility to share your maps with the world. So like if I were to go to the map gallery for Incarnate, I think I can just start scrolling through other people's maps. And that might be a great way to get some concept. I mean, like, this looks really good. I like the looks of this map. And you can see, like, here's a more zoomed out regional style map. There's a lot of fun things you can do with this. So there's, again, if you look at this, you might get ideas or inspiration for your own maps by looking just at the free shared maps that people have put out there. You can see they now battle maps and interior maps as well. Again, lots of good options. At some point, it might not be something that you feel comfortable starting out doing, but I feel like if you're DMing for a while, at some point you're going to want to draw a map. Now, that could be as simple as you just taking a pen and a piece of paper and scribbling, you know, something on a map, or on a piece of paper, or on a battle map or something, and that's enough. But if you ever decide you want to dive into homebrewing and doing your own homebrew world, you might not want to get as crazy as, say, Ed Greenwood's, the Forgotten Realms, and go this nuts. But you might want to do something a little bit more simplistic, but still have it. Or maybe you just like drawing maps and you want to have one so you can print one out. And that's always a cool thing, where you can hand your players a physical printed map that you get printed either by yourself, if you have a plotter or access to one at work, or maybe, through Staples or some other office supply place, they print you out the map, you can roll it up and give it to your players. And that's just a cool, like, prop, but it's functional.
Number 7.
A blank dungeon collection. Now, you could just probably, even on those websites I was just talking about in the map creation tool, look and find battle maps. What I personally like here is Dungeons for the Master. This is just a collection, as you can see, of just random dungeons. They're all done in the old school black and white style, and it says they have names on them right here. The Dungeon of Nessos, the Desric Guri, and if you were to flip through, you'll see all of these. Now, they don't have any information in them. Each dungeon is just completely blank. You can see where the doors are, and there are stairs and things, and I think right at the start, so it'll just go through and it'll show you all this. And at the back, there are some tables and things that you can use to populate those. But if you're having trouble, and like, it happens to me all the time, and thankfully I have enough, knowledge in Dungeons and Dragons and enough D&D books from various sources that I can just say, oh crap, the party's going to go into a thieves guild. What am I going to do? And then I need to come up with what the thieves guild, and I'm treating it basically like a dungeon that they're going to have to crawl through. And then I say, okay, well, that one looks good. And then I have my basis, and now I need to figure out what's in each of these rooms. How do you access this, where traps are and stuff like that. But the actual layout of the dungeon is complete. Now, this gets a little trickier if you want to start doing things with physical terrain, like, say, Dwarven Forge or some other 3D printed terrain. Then you need to know, do I have enough pieces to do this? But if you're just doing it drawn out on a battle map, or even if you're doing Theater of the Mind, you at least have this. And there's no reason that, in theory, you couldn't make photocopies of this and, like, give it to a player, or make multiple photocopies of it. Like, okay, when they get to here, they get this map, and then I give them this piece or this piece. Or scan this into a computer, and then if you're playing on a virtual tabletop, fog of war it, and then remove it as they're going through so they only see what they see. This kind of things are invaluable. I'm sure there's other resources out there. There's no reason you couldn't use a pre-existing campaign from something and then look at a dungeon map that they have and reuse that. These are a little nicer because you can put the numbers on it where you want, or you want this room to be room number 1, then you write what's in it. So this is a great resource. I think I picked this up off of Amazon. It says on the back here, a role-playing game guide aid from dicegeeks.com. 177 hand-drawn maps plus a massive D100 dungeon encounter table. So that's, I think, a pretty good resource. So some sort of, and it doesn't necessarily have to be dungeons too, right? This could be blank tavern maps or castle maps or whatever that you can then populate for yourself, saving you time to allow you to focus on other things.
Number 6.
D&D lore channels on YouTube. Or if you have a favorite lore writer who has like a blog or something like that, that would probably be fine. And some of it, and let me, I guess, give a caveat or an asterisk here. More for your own knowledge. Now, there's a lot of them out there. I can give you a couple that I enjoy off the top of my head, right? Like, I like Mr. Rex. I like AJ Pickett. I like Jordan with the silent PH in the middle. They're friends of mine. I've done interviews and videos with them and stuff in the past, so that's cool. There are other ones out there. I'm sure Esper the Bard, I think, is one. There's a couple other ones that you guys... Forgotten Realms. There's a Forgotten Realms channel. Forgotten Realms Explored or something like that. I don't know. But either way, there's a bunch of them out there. And what I'd say probably, unless you're playing... If you're playing in the Forgotten... If they're specific to a realm, like Forgotten Realms, let's say, and you're playing in the realms, then that's invaluable knowledge for you. You can go and learn about stuff. Now, obviously, if you're going to play in a pre-written, established world, you can obviously take it in any direction you want. It doesn't have to even deal with the lore at all. And I've done that myself. Started off in Lost Minds of Phandelver and then continued to play in the realms, but made it my own version of the realms. Kept a lot of stuff, changed a lot of stuff as well. But if you want to know like high level stuff, what's going on with like a city like Neverwinter, well, then go watch a video on Neverwinter and now you know about it. And with, at least high enough detail that you feel comfortable enough running that city. But where I think it's more invaluable is the monster lore, right? If you want to know about djinns, or you want to know about aboleths, or drow, or kuatoa, find, or dragons, right? Maybe you want to just go high level, right? Dragons or other, liches or whatnot. A lot of these guys have videos on the various different monster lore, and you watch that video, you can learn so much stuff. And it might, even if it's, some of that stuff might be talking about them in a high level ethereal sense, pulling information from wikis and other older editions and things like that, and that might not necessarily translate to the stat block that you see in 5th edition, but you can make it, tweak and alter that stat block. It might give you inspiration for hearing a story about one famous lich, might give you an idea of how you want to incorporate a lich into your campaign. Hearing about some creature that existed that doesn't have a stat block in 5th edition, now you might want to go make one. I watch, I'm pretty knowledgeable about Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about D&D lore. I wouldn't say it's as much of a passion as mine as it is for these other folks, but I do enjoy it quite a bit. I absorb as much knowledge about D&D as I'm able to on a daily basis, so I know quite a bit about a lot of different D&D creatures, but I'm always learning something new the more I figure out about it. So I would highly recommend checking out, I'll put links in the description to a bunch of different lore channels, and you guys can go check those out. And if you like what they do there, feel free to give them a subscribe.
Number 5.
Reddit. I mean, say what you will about Reddit. You may like Reddit, you may hate Reddit, but Reddit is a useful resource. I feel like this is the best close answer I can get to people who just said the internet as their favorite DM resource, which thank you for nothing on that comment, folks. But I have a couple of subreddits pulled up here that may be of use, and there's probably more. I'm sure there's more. There has to be, because it's Reddit. But we have right here, we have r/world building. This isn't necessarily D&D specific, but if you're looking for help or inspiration regarding building your own homebrew world, you'll find a lot of stuff here. We have r/urban fantasy. If you want to deal with more on the city side, or you want to deal more urban style, futuristic stuff, we can do that. We have r/unearthed arcana. This is sort of a homebrew Reddit where people post stuff. I mean, look right here. This is pretty interesting to me. This is the Sylvari, the plant people from Guild Wars 2. I got my start doing stuff on the internet with Guild Wars 2. So I'm pretty excited that there's someone attempted to make a Sylvari race, which is really cool. So that's neat. We have r/DM Academy, right? We're talking about DM resources. You have questions as a dungeon master. And I guess we could expand Reddit beyond this to also say something along the lines of like forums in general. One of the best resources used to be the official Wizards of the Coast forums, which they used to have and host. And I learned so much about D&D and character building and all this kind of stuff from the old Wizards of the Coast forums. They decided a couple years ago to just completely destroy those forums and nuke them and remove them completely, which was a really big detriment. And I really don't know why they did that. If you look around, I know some places and some other forums like Giant in the Playground and others saved as much of the information as possible before it got deleted so that you could still find things. But anyway, we have DM Academy here, and then this is r/map making, right? If you're looking for help designing maps, this could be a little one, and you'll probably see ones here found made, like this one here is made in Incarnate. This one might also be Incarnate, maybe Dungeon Fog, Dungeon Draft, and so on. Again, you could obviously go into things like r/D&D or r/D&D 5e, r/Dungeons and Dragons. There is no limit to Dungeons and Dragons related subreddits out there, and I'm sure there's probably more again that I haven't even mentioned here. It's Reddit though, right? Reddit's not for everybody. You never know what you're gonna get. It's a public forum, right? You could get real asshats, and it's gonna be a horrible time for you, or you could get very legitimate responses. Also, r/D&D leaks is another good one if you're looking to stay up to date on information that is leaked on new products and whatnot. So take it with a grain of salt, but there's resources to be had there.
Number 4.
Sly Flourish, in general, in any capacity. Primarily, I would say things like the Lazy Dungeon Master, or Lazy DM's workbook, or the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. I'm a lazy dungeon master, so this is right up my alley. I guess I wouldn't say I'm lazy. I'm a time crunched dungeon master. Let me rephrase. Between working 40 plus hours a week every week, including sometimes night shifts and weekends based on my regular job, doing D&D YouTube and trying to upload a video every day, staying full on top of news coverage, raising a family with 2 boys under 4 years old, also having a house to take care of, doing various woodworking and home projects and things like that, and then maybe sometime in there trying to find time to do something for me. I don't have a lot of time to prepare for my campaigns, and at a point I was running 3 campaigns like a week. Now I'm only running 1, and that may be changing in the future, who knows. But I don't have, and unfortunately for my players, or fortunately depending on how you look at it, because they seem to really enjoy what I do, that's the thing that I can put the least amount of time into, which is we're going to play for about 3 hours every Tuesday. By the way, I do stream on Twitch every Tuesday, twitch.tv/nerdimmersion. There's a link in the description. All the previous campaigns are uploaded on either here or Nerd Immersion Plays YouTube. And I usually have a general, we're playing in my homebrew world, so that helps because nobody knows the lore better than me because some of the times I haven't made it up yet. But I usually don't have, I can maybe get a half an hour prep time, if that. And, and that's kind of just become my norm. And I would like to shake that up for our second campaign in my homebrew world coming up whenever this one finishes. I'd like to do more. But considering I just don't have the time right now with everything else I have going on, anything that I can find that can help me save time will do that. And books like these that will show me how to do things with least amount of prep work are super helpful. But I did want to show you a link over here to the to Sly Flourish website here, and we can see various articles here on the website. Playing D&D can save your life, getting started, the minimum viable game, running combat, and theater of the mind. That can be very useful for folks who don't really understand how to do that. How to use Notion for prep. We talked about that in the past. Playing over Discord. Here's the latest 15 articles. You can see those are already as frequently as the 21st of January. So We have a whole bunch of stuff here from a variety of different things. D&D prep, write down 10 things. That's a big one for me. Take some time, write a few things down so you have stuff going in. The amount of times I could show you my DM notebook where I have like a word on a page and that's it. That's my notes for the day. I would like to change that. And then we have something like this, which I do want to look into, is replace flanking with cinematic advantage. That could be very interesting. And then we have some more stuff here. You can see there's things over here on the left side. There are YouTube videos you can go watch. I consume a lot of YouTube. That's usually the way I get most of my information, so that's a good thing for me. We have, obviously, Patreon, Twitch channel, Twitter, and then we have books, right? The Lazy DM's workbook that I mentioned, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And then we have Fantastic Lairs, 23 layers and boss battles you can drop into your game. Again, do not overlook that kind of stuff of drop-in things. That's why I am excited for Candlekeep Mysteries and the fact that it's potential drop-in content, because if you're stagnating on your game or you don't know where things are going to go, or you set up a big plot point and they're going to be in a city and you don't want to rush into that plot point and you need to fill the gap, you can sprinkle little hints here and there and then pull one of these layers, pull an adventure, something like that, drop it into your campaign, and that may end up becoming more memorable than what you had planned, and you end up nixing what the future plan was. Fantastic Adventures, Runes of the Grendel Route, 10 short adventures for levels 1 to 5. We have Fantastic Adventures, 10 easy-to-run adventures from 1 to 5, and then more 20 locations you can drop into your D&D game. And then there's more like new to D&D, stuff about lazy DMing, DM tools. Again, a lot of this stuff is what we're talking about here, useful DM tools. D&D advice, encounter building, running D&D online. Here's stuff to get inspiration for you here. DM inspiration, how to run one-on-one. There's a ton of stuff here. Really, just this link alone could probably give you almost all you would need from this video. So I will obviously have a link to this in the description. But yeah, and you know, these tools are incalculable. So go ahead and check them out.
Number 3.
This one's more of a higher level thing, but something to look up monsters. That came up consistently in everybody's comments. Whether it be a PDF on your phone, whether it be something like 5e tools, whether it be D&D Beyond, I don't know, Roll20, Kobold Fight Club, I don't know, something out there that lets you look up monsters and look up monsters quickly, right? Because if you have an idea, and this is something that I do frequently, I use D&D Beyond for a lot of mine, but or if you have a great homebrew resource that you like to use, Monster Manual Expanded, any other kind of extra bestiary that you have access to in PDF form or otherwise, something searchable helps, because sometimes I might look at an encounter that I found on the internet or that I see in an existing D&D book and I say, ooh, I want to use that. I like the concept and framing of that. My party is too weak or my party is too strong to face this encounter on its face, like as it's written in face value. What do I do? So if it says, oh, you're going to encounter dwarves in this dungeon or this encounter, and I say, well, my party is way too strong to just fight a couple of Dwergar, I might type into my favorite bestiary, Dwergar, and then see like, okay, here's the base one, challenge rating 1, but then there's a Dwergar Scion, and that's challenge rating 7, and I replace all of them with that new monster type, and then that makes the encounter significantly harder. Or it could go the other way, right? If you find an encounter you super love, and it's for, levels 10, and your party's level 5, you say, okay, well, it says it's going to have, drow assassins. Maybe I cut it back to just be, base drow or drow scouts or something like that. Or I take an assassin and I turn it into a scout. Whatever. You switch things up so that you can make things easier for them or harder for them. But you need to have access for something to look up monsters. And while you could have physical books in front of you, and I often do have my physical books in front of me, the problem with that is for that Dwergar example, that drow example, if all you have is the monster manual, you might only have 3 options in there, which means you now need to flip through Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Volvo's Guide to Monsters, other homebrew sources. But if you have them aggregated in some form together where you can quickly search and see, even if it's just searching to say, oh, hey, they're in this book, let me go look in that book, that can be a huge time saver for you. Again, you can figure this out ahead of time if you have time to plan. You can do this ahead of time and have it all ready to go. But if something escalates in the moment that you weren't prepared for and you need to think on the fly, something that you can use to digitally search something and find out where to go faster will be invaluable.
Number 2.
Name tables or name generators. You guys all know, I'm sure you've heard of a story or have experienced it yourself, where the party goes, and what's your name? To the DM, and they're like, Schweppes. Yep, my name is Schweppes, the ginger bartender. Yeah, yep, that's me, right? And you just start looking around for things in the room to name it. Or Tossot. Maybe I'm a Dragonborn. I don't know. But you get my point. You're trying to come up with a name and you're scrambling, and then it kind of takes the immersion away while you're trying to figure out a name. So whether that's a name generator like fantasynamegenerators.com, which is a name where you can pull a thing where you can pull a whole bunch. I believe here in the Lazy DM's workbook, there's just a list of, yep, this is fantasy names. This is given names. These are surnames, whether that's the back of Xanathar's Guide with the name tables, whether that's 10,000 names, the D&D, the DM's Guild book, some form of have a table or something full of names, right? At your beck and call whenever you need it. If you're smart, I would say split them out by race or put them in racial groups, right? We all know a kobold's name is going to sound different than an elf's name, which will sound different than a human's name, right? If this is Tarathiel the kobold, maybe you looked at the wrong table. Or this is Grax the elf, maybe you looked at the orc table, you know what I mean? So you just need to, if you group them up by different races or similar groupings, right? Like this will be my orc Goliath lizard folk table, right? This will be my elf, half elf, and Eladrin table, or whatever it is. Then you at least can say, oh, okay. And then you can just get it printed. Do not have this digital unless you have it access with like a tablet and a digital pen, and cross off the names as you go down the list. You've got 50 names for this line. Cross off the first, when you use them, start crossing them off. Because again, nothing is, you forget that you didn't use name, you used name number 4 already. And then the party meets another elf and you go back to name number 4 and they're like, oh, are you like the same as that last elf? And you're like, shit. Well, maybe this is like John in my world. So yep, they all have, Aramil is the John of the elves. So now everybody that's the super most common elven name. I don't know, right? Things like that. But names, name tables, name generators, even if it's like a random one where you just hit a button on a tablet or on your phone and it bing pops up a name and you just go with it. The only problem I have with name generators is how many times have you used a name generator where you've been like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh, that one's okay. I don't like that. That's the problem with name generators is you're going to waste time clicking through things. So another thing I'd say is get your list of names together and then do yourself a favor and go through that list of names and cross off the names you don't like or the names that sound funny. If you're unfamiliar with Critical Role Season 1, there was a character or an NPC or a historical figure that Matt wrote the name for, and it sounded fine in his head, but the name was Pervon. And the party just latched onto Pervon there because it had Perv in the name, and they thought it was hilarious. And that completely killed the tension, at least for the moment. And, had he looked at his list and said, and read the names out loud too, because if you read Pervon out loud, you're like, let's cross Pervon off the list. That's not a good one for us.
Number 1.
Older editions. Do not discount the incalculable resource of older editions of Dungeons and Dragons. You could probably go all the way back to 1E. I'm going to use 3.5 as an example because I know it well. I have a ton of 3.5 books, and they were very exhaustive in the amount of books that they made. There was a ton of book bloat where you had books coming out seemingly every couple months or multiple books a month at a time period, whether that be for the Forgotten Realms, Eberron, Dragonlance, whatever. They had a ton of them. So there's resources there. you might look back at the 3.5 magic item compendium, flip through it and say, oh, look, there's that item I know about in 5th edition. Oh, man, it used to do so much cooler stuff back in 3.5. Well, that sucks. Maybe you updated in your game. Or be like, wow, look, they have items specific to monks and items specific to this class. That sounds fun. Let me put that in my game. You often sit there and say, well, I wish we had rules for dragon bits and how we deal with it. Look at the 3.5 Dragonomicon. It has rules for what you can do with dragon parts and how you can make different things. You want to have concepts for dragons as characters or giving dragons character classes. That book had rules for that. It, again, is going to take a little bit of effort to translate things from 3.5 to 5e. They're close enough, though, where I feel like you can do that transition with minimal effort if you just look at it and try to correlate. Some stuff you'll have to drop. You'll have to change will saves to wisdom saves and fortitude saves to constitution saves. But you get my point. There is books, the lore from these books, right? The fact that there was books like Dragonomicon, there was Libris Mortis, the Book of the Undead, Lords of Madness, the Book of Aberrations, the Fiend Folios, the Book of Vile Darkness, the Book of Exalted Deeds. The fact that there was a race book for everything. That was Races of Stone that covered dwarves and gnomes and Goliaths. Races of Destiny that covered humans, half-elves and half-orcs. Races of the Dragon, Races of the Forest. All these kind of things. Races of Eberron, Races of Faerun. There were books for all of these things. You can find something. How about a book on the planes? How about a book on deities, right? Deities and demigods. Faiths of the Forgotten Realms. These were all books that existed. You can go and find those. I think they're almost all available in downloadable PDF form on the DMs Guild. You can buy them on there. If you have credits for the DMs Guild or anything like that, you can use those. You could probably go to a secondhand bookstore or an old game shop that has things, and maybe even find the physical books. eBay, Facebook Marketplace. These are great ways to find a lot of these kind of things. And depending on who has the books and knows what they have, you might be able to get a pretty big lot of these books and score them for about $20 a book or less. I know my local game shop a couple years ago was liquidating all their 3.5 stuff, and I bought probably 15 3.5 books for $2 a pop. So I doubled or tripled my Forgotten Realms collection of books for $2 a piece because they just wanted to only have 5th edition stuff. And that was amazing for me as a 3.5 player. I'll also point you to this website here, which is the D&D 3.5 archives on the Old Wizards of the Coast website. You might be able to find some stuff here as well, right? We had stuff back when we used to get Dragon magazines. We have all these archives by the year. See these? This even goes all the way from 3rd edition all the way up into 4th edition. You can see they had them broken out by different categories. We used to get maps a week. Folks, it was a great time back in the day, the amount of stuff you used to be able to get. All these different articles. Again, we look at these birthdays. August birthdays. Let's go and look this up. We'd like to wish a happy birthday to our Andy Collins, our developer, right? Like it was a much more personable company, I feel like, back in the day. Maybe this was prior to Hasbro and that's why. But the fact that we could get kind of things like this, like, oh, look, here's Monster Manual 5, right? And it'll say right here, you can get a screensaver, right, for your Monster Manual 5 screensaver. I don't know if these will still work. That could be a fun thing to do. But there were also articles. I've mentioned it before, right? Here's, I have a favorited link here. Races of the Dragon Part 2, web enhancement for kobolds, right? They had a problem that they thought the kobolds weren't strong enough, so they made a whole designer note about altering, making new stuff for kobolds as a playable race, giving them new proficiencies, giving them more expanded religion and domain spells, giving them a ritual to gain and attain magical draconic powers and a feat and all this kind of stuff. And this was all for free on the internet. So if you were to go through and dive through these old 2002 archives, look at all this stuff. Psionic Bestiary, Quanok Lizard Folk. Let's click that, right? It's a stat block, right? With more information. There was an ectoplasmic ooze, right? Live out your Ghostbuster fantasy with an ectoplasmic ooze here. And there's all the stat blocks. There's a ton. I'll put a link to this in the description below. This is all free. You can all access this. You could do things. I think they had an old, they had a deck of many things generator. They had a dice roller. They had all sorts of awesome stuff on here. What's this? Steal this hook. Let's check this. right? Okay, this is a whole thing of look at this. It is just adventure hooks. They're just sitting out there for free, folks. And it's from Wizards of the Coast. Like, you can use this, and it'll probably translate pretty well with a little bit of tweaking. So, anyway, folks, sorry this took so long. It'll be out by the Thursday by the time you guys actually see this. I just, I had some work done at the house. I had a tank, oil tank removed, and some other work was being, handled yesterday, and work was really crazy. So I didn't get a chance to make as much as I wanted to do. And I made a couple other videos. I didn't get a chance to release them. Some more Candlekeep stuff that's been announced. Some fun other like little news articles that I found. And anyway, thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me, for voting for this video that you see that you're watching right now. More Nerd Immersion content to come soon. I mentioned doing a book club back when the new Drizzt book launched in the summer. I still would like to try to start a D&D book club in some format, whether it be reading D&D novels or like picking up a D&D like the Player's Handbook and reading the Player's Handbook chapter by chapter, or reading the newest adventure module, like say Icewind Dale, or maybe Candlekeep Mysteries, and we read it chapter by chapter in some form of a book club format where we can discuss it. That's the hardest part.